At the Liqui Grand Prix of Germany. Marc Marquez is used to Grand Prix glory in Germany with 11 wins from his last visits, but can the Spaniard find his Midas touch again to take gold in the Tissot Sprint? It's time for MotoGP. So 25 years ago, way back in 1998, was the first time we came to this tight and twisty 3.671 kilometre, 2.28 miles Sachsenring circuit. Anti-clockwise, one of just 4 anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar, 13 corners, 10 of them left. Pecco Bagnaia, an all-time lap record of 1:19.765, set pole here 1 year ago, and in a dramatic 2 qualifying test this morning, the world champ starting from pole in the sprint and tomorrow's Grand Prix. Turn 1 then gets the short lap underway, that tricky downhill braking zone before the track really starts to open up through sector 3, including the spectacular plunge down through turn number 11. And turn 13 this morning was a Marco Bezzecchi, and Marc Marquez took tumbles in qualifying. Good afternoon then, and welcome to the Sachsenring. It's the Liqui Grand Prix of Germany, Chapter 7, in what's already been a fantastic 2023 MotoGP World Championship campaign. It's time to find out who will be Round 7 winner in the Tissot Sprint. The big pre-showdown favourite without any question is the reigning world champion, Ducati Lenovo star Pecco Bagnaia, who this morning, in 2 epic qualifying sessions, took his 4th pole position in the last 5 Grand Prix, and sprint Saturdays have been the forte so far, haven't they, of the reigning world champion. He's already won 50% of the sprints we've had so far this season. 3 sprint wins and 2 other podiums so far for Pecco Bagnaia. He's taken 56 points on Saturday afternoons so far in 2023, and he goes from pole position, as we mentioned, at the end of a Q2 session which was pretty much full of a season's worth of drama. Incredible action, including Marc Marquez, of course, after his controversial collision with Sohan Zarco at turn 1 in P2 yesterday. He was in Q1 this morning. And then this man, the 8 times world champion, the undisputed king of the Sachsenring. Tomorrow he goes for 12 wins in his last 12 visits in the main feature race over 30 laps. But Marc Marquez, it was an eventful Friday here in Germany for the number 93. Well, it was a very eventful Saturday morning as well. In Q1, a crash at turn 13, and then 2 crashes on slick tyres. As we said, in a pulsating Q2 session, this man was on the floor 3 times in exactly 30 minutes this morning. Marc Marquez, 4 crashes so far this weekend as he guns for glory in this afternoon's sprint. This was the first then. This was crash number 1. Marquez then high-siding flick nastily over the handlebars there, wasn't he? That was in Q2. That was the first of his Q2 crashes. Now we're going to find out how he, at this point, hobbling away from the scene with a crashed motorcycle and 1 already damaged motorcycle after his Q1 crash. Everybody, including his crew chief Santi Hernandez, thought that was it, game over. But Marc Marquez sprints back to that stricken Repsol Honda, and with the assistance of the marshals on the perimeter road here, he's able to get it going again, slots himself back onto the circuit in turn 13. And at this point, of course, his Repsol Honda crew were not expecting Marco Bezzecchi sprinting up the pit lane just as Marquez had done earlier on in the session. Now at this stage, Marquez's crew had no idea that he was coming back in. And this was the moment where they whipped off the wings of Joan Mir's Honda machine. Of course, Mir sidelined with a nasty right hand injury. And to get him back out for the remainder of that Q2 session, Marc Marquez was back in action. You can see that they took the right wing off Mir's Repsol Honda, and then this was quickly followed by another crash. This was the 3rd in exactly 30 minutes. He went down at 10:59 this morning, 11:19, and then this was at 11:29, and that was all she wrote. Marc Marquez's hopes of another pole position ending in a cloud of dust here. He is riding on the absolute limit, isn't he? On the ragged edge. That was the 4th crash of the weekend so far for the number 93. What lies in store? He's going to be box office. He heads at row 3 in this 15-lap Tissot sprint. In the company of myself, Matt Burt, Lewis Sotheby alongside me in the commentary box with Simon Crafar down in pit lane after the rain disruptions first thing this morning. We have some beautiful sunshine here for these 15-lap sprints, and this man, well, he's been the superstar of Super Saturdays, hasn't he? As we mentioned already so far this season, 3 sprint wins have gone the way of the 26-year-old Italian. 4 poles now in his last 5 races. He's had 5 sprint podiums in the opening 6 of this new era, which has been spectacular action on Saturday afternoons. And when everybody else was losing their heads around it this morning, Lewis, the ice-cool world champ kept his cool to secure that pole.
A chaotic qualifying session, and blissfully clear of all of it was Pecco Bagnaia to take that pole position. Jack Miller will join him on the front row of the grid, third for him coming into this sprint, and of course he's going to be a rider to watch off the line on that fast starting KTM. Do not be surprised to see Jack Miller get the whole shot in around about 20 minutes time, because Marc Marquez has been the story of the weekend, hasn't he? Of course, that crash which scooped up Johann Zarco yesterday afternoon. In all of his times that he's come to the Sachsenring, of course he's won his last 11 visits, Marc Marquez has never come into a German Grand Prix as more of an underdog.
Pecco Bagnaia on pole position, but would that have been a different story had it not been for a late flurry of yellow flags? One man who had some yellow peril right at the end of that Q2 session was this man, Marco Bezzecchi. This was his lap and Jorge Martin's lap cancelled late on. They both probably felt like they'd been on the front row minimum, maybe pole position. Johann Zarco's weekend of woe continues. That's a fast old crash there, 5th gear, coming through that Wallman curve at nearly 200 kilometres an hour. There are the yellow flags then, clearly waving as Bezzecchi dropped down through that turn number 11. Jorge Martin was a very frustrated figure as well. His ideal lap, actually, if you put all of the best sectors together, Jorge Martin's ideal lap was a clear pole position lap. That's why Martin looked frustrated. He goes from the back of that second row, Bezzecchi in 5th place.
When he's not been involved in incidents, Johann Zarco has been mighty fast, hasn't he, this weekend? He does start still from the front of that second row in 4th. He was quickest in practice 1 yesterday afternoon and was on pole here last year. So there's no question that Johann Zarco is quick, but he hasn't been too lucky so far this weekend.
Let's go down to the grid then for the first time on this Saturday afternoon. Simon Crafar, I believe, is with LCR Honda boss Lucio Cecchinello.
Yeah, we're still in the pit lane, machines still in the garages, and it feels like calm before the storm. Lucio, wanted to hear from you before we all go out to the grid on how Tucker is going with his injury, and give a shout out to Alex, your superstar, Alex Rins.
Taka, I think this morning, because of the tricky condition, you know, the asphalt wasn't really 100% dry. He preferred to keep the rain tire as the majority of the riders, and I think he missed a little bit the grip. He missed a little bit he didn't want to take more risk. So unfortunately we start P18. But what is important right now is that we have full dry condition. He feel quite good with a dry bike. So let's see what happens.
Is he going to use the Calyx in the race? Calyx chassis or not?
Well, I want to say, you know, everybody is saying Calyx, but in reality, you know, Honda just made this chassis with this company, with their own design, with their own specification, with their own project, you know. So it's an Honda chassis, you know, made by an external supplier, like they do in Japan. So in reality, Taka says that there are not so much difference. There are some positive points, but also there are still some, let's say, points that is to be improved. So we will do the race with the standard chassis.
Wow. Okay, and latest on Alex Rins.
Alex Rins, we got a call from him this morning, 8 o'clock. We were surprised, very, very happy to have him on the video phone, on a video call, and he said, of course, that he's missing being here. But everything is okay. He doesn't have pain anymore, and he's looking forward to get to the surgery next week.
Thank you, Lucio. Best of luck this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Lucio. Checking on the tough old sprint and a tough Grand Prix coming the way of Taka Nakagami tomorrow. 18th he starts on the grid. As Lucio mentioned, suffering as well with an aggravation to the little right finger injury suffered in Aragon last year when he got trapped under his Honda. Trapped under his Honda again yesterday in that crash in P2. Taka Nakagami goes from 18th place. Worth noting there, wasn't it? This morning in the rapidly drying surface in Q1, there was only Marc Marquez and Brad Binder that did go for the slick tyre, and that proved to be very, very decisive indeed. Everybody else stayed out on the Michelin rain rubber, and it didn't pay off as Marquez and Binder came through Q1. Looks like, thankfully, Lewis, we're not going to need those rain tyres again this afternoon.
It doesn't appear so, no. Of course, although the weather forecasts haven't always been the most accurate so far this weekend, this is a part of the world where the weather can surprise us. Unsurprisingly, asymmetric rubber on both the front and the rear, because so much of this Sachsenring lap is spent on the left-hand side of the tyre. 10 of the 13 corners around this 2.28 mile Sachsenring circuit are on the left-hand side of the tyre, although it tends to be the three right-handers that cause the trouble. The two corners in particular where we've seen most of the incidents this weekend have been at the end of the main straight into the 40-mile-an-hour turn 1, and also the super fast Ralph Foreman curve, the 120-mile-an-hour corner that takes them down the hill into the final couple of lefts.
So we just saw there then Pecco Bagnaia. Already this season he has completed the sprint and Grand Prix double twice. He did it in history-making fashion in the inaugural sprint in Portimao to kick off the defence of his world title in 2023, and he did it in an utterly dominant performance. What a show of supremacy it was last weekend in front of his home crowd in Mugello. In fact, he did the treble, didn't he, last weekend? As we mentioned, the pole, sprint and Grand Prix success. What a feather in his cap that was. And as we mentioned, there's been nobody that can hold a candle to this man on Super Saturday, on Sprint Saturdays. 56 points he's taken in the sprints. That's 30 more than what Jorge Martin has collected, nearly 20 more than what Brad Binder has picked up on a Saturday as well. The clear 3 stars of the sprints so far this season have been Bagnaia, Martin and Binder, although Binder's going to have to get one of his trademark electric launches on the factory KTM as he goes from the back of that third row. I'd imagine a tinge of disappointment, Lewis, for Binder this afternoon. Well, certainly in the qualifying too, having done all the hard work, gambled on the slick tyres to come through Q1 as the fastest man, and with the knowledge and experience of the track conditions going into Q2, I guess he might have missed out qualifying in 9th.
He must have thought he was going into qualifying 2 with a real advantage, along with Marc Marquez, from that experience in the first session. Of course, he needs to give a little bit of a nod and a thanks to his teammate, as he did at the end of qualifying 1, because it was a little bit of a helpful word in his ear from Jack Miller, which ultimately convinced him to go for the slicks in Q1. Only Binder and Marquez went for it, and in the end they were rewarded with the top 2 places and a spot in qualifying 2. As we constantly say with Brad Binder, when he qualifies slightly down the grid, he has won sprints from lower than this, of course. 15th to the win in Argentina, but this is a very different proposition facing him on what is a notoriously difficult track to pass on.
First, 6th, first, second, third, first. That's Pecco Bagnaia's record in the sprint so far in 2023. As these wonderful drone shots bring us all the pre-sprint action from the grid. Will Pecco Bagnaia double up again here this afternoon? Now, in Grand Prix history, only Casey Stoner has won more Grand Prix for Ducati than Pecco Bagnaia. And congratulations to this man. He avoided all the late mayhem, didn't he, in Q2? A best ever MotoGP qualifying for Luca Marini. Second, his previous front row starts had all been from the back of that front row in 3rd place. He's going to have it all on, though, and already, I think, conceding defeat to the Jack Miller's fast-starting KTM that this morning, Luca Marini. But great qualifying for him on that 2nd position, as we mentioned.
Yeah, he's expecting to see a flash of orange on his right-hand side very shortly after the red lights go out. He was slightly concerned both yesterday afternoon after practice 2 and also after his P2 qualifying result in qualifying, that he doesn't have the pace over longer distances to back up what he's done in qualifying. Of course, this Tito sprint over 15 laps, so perhaps Marini might find himself fighting a rearguard action tomorrow afternoon. We've so often seen in these sprints that we have big groups at the front. So often this season we've seen the top 10 covered by less than 5 or 6 seconds. Will we see a repeat of that today? Of course, it might be crucial what happens at the start. If Jack Miller can get that whole shot, that might prevent the likes of Bagnaia and Martin from taking off at the front.
There's Johann Zarco, 4th place in the grid. Best qualifying for him in 11 Grand Prix since the Japanese round in Motegi last October. Big expectations, high expectations then for Muni VR46 Racing. Luca Marini starting from that career best 2nd place. Marco Bezzecchi on the middle of the 2nd row in 5th. You can see the starting grid on your screen. Now let's get some pre-sprint thoughts from Pablo Nieto with Simon.
He is, Pablo. The weather's good, and your rider Marco Bezzecchi, he's been fast, on the pace, competitive everywhere this year, and here it was no different. Just had some bad luck with yellow flags, and Luca Marini, we know with the injury, Mugello, amazing job, and again here. Give us your thoughts, please.
Yeah, at the moment it's a fantastic year for us. It's true that this track is really, really difficult because all the riders are really, really fast. But anyway, I think it's really important to try to make a very good race. For us also was really important to make a very good qualifying, to be in the front row and 2nd row. Now we know that the first breaking point is going to be really tough. But anyway, we are here.
Okay, anything else you're worrying about? Tyre choices, is it warm enough to use the hard front? I guess it's soft rear.
Yeah, with Marco and Luca, we decided different choice. Luca, he will use hard one, and Marco medium in the front rear, in the front tire. But it's a little bit a lottery because in the end this morning we couldn't try with the rain condition. But anyway, we will see.
Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks, Pablo Nieto. I was just about to say, yeah, that is a bit of a gamble, a bit of a stab in the dark, isn't it? Because with the rain interventions of yesterday and particularly this morning, and how cool and chilly and windy it was here in this part of Germany's Saxony region yesterday, I don't really recall anybody actually trying that Michelin hard front tyre. So this will be a journey into the unknown for many, many riders. As we just mentioned then, Johann Zarco's best qualifying since the Japanese Grand Prix last year. Jorge Martin felt like he had something for pole position despite all those late yellow flags which cost him. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts. Pramac Racing boss Gino Borso with both of his men on that 2nd row. Simon, down to you.
Yes, Gino, it's been an eventful race weekend so far. I hope we don't have any more scenes that you have to be worried about. Both of your riders really fast. Shame about the yellow flag at the end of qualifying. Please give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a shame for Jorge because his last lap was so fast, and I think he were able to get the pole position. But this like this, we get the yellow flag due to the crash of Zarco. The most important thing is okay, bike are okay. So I hope we can talk about the race after the sprint race.
Just curious, is the tyre choice simple or it's still a tricky one?
No, it's not a tricky one. Everybody, I think, go on the same choice. So let's see what's going on. The first corner, the tricky point of the race, and for the race, I think we are quite safe, quite optimistic because the rear tire was okay for our simulation. So no big issue. Let's cross the finger and let's see.
Thank you, Gino. Good luck.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Gino Borso. Yes, of course, it was Johann Zarco's high-speed get-off at turn number 11 this morning, which did deny, ultimately, his teammate Jorge Martin what would have been his 10th career pole position in the MotoGP World Championship. The countdown then now well and truly underway for this 15-lap Tissot sprint here in the Saxon Ring. And what does lie in store then for Marc Marquez? Excellent qualifying for Jack Miller, wasn't it, this morning, putting the Red Bull KTM Factory Racing RC16 on the front row for the 2nd time in 2023. Keep an eye on the hard-charging and fast-starting Brad Binder going from the back of the 3rd row in 9th. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts from Red Bull KTM boss Francesco Guidotti, who's with Simon.
Yes, Francesco, both your boys are flying, really on form, your bike, and they are good off the start, which seems really important here. Please give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows about the pace because this morning everybody was ready to understand which tire and what the setup. So we will know more about the pace during the race. But I think, as you said, with a good start, will be most probably be on the leading group. And 15 laps is quite a lot. So let's see. But I think we are ready.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
There you go then. The KTM slogan is ready to race, and Francesco Guidotti confident that his boys are ready for this Tissot sprint. Brad Binder, of course, has won a sprint this season from a long way further back down the grid, 15th to the win in Tema Rio Hondo, but this is a completely different ball game, this short, narrow Saxon Ring circuit, notoriously difficult to overtake, so he's got it all on coming from the back of that third row.
And Aleix Espargaro comes from the front of the fourth row. Of course, it's the fourth time this season, fifth time in fact, he started off the front two rows of the grid. Qualifying has been a bit of an Achilles heel for Aleix so far this season, who once again came to this weekend carrying the pain of his cycling accident last weekend. He was so pumped up yesterday afternoon when he earned an automatic place in Q2 with that lap in practice 2. But the Aprilias have got it all on this afternoon. Aleix is 10th, his teammate Maverick Vinales one row further back in 13th. Just
caught a quick glimpse there of Jorge Martin. He's loving life on Saturdays in the sprint as well, isn't he? He's also had, 4 podiums in 6 sprints, and this man is working his way back to top form, isn't he? Getting acquainted finally with that GP23 after an injury-ravaged start to his first season in the Ducati factory squad. And there, Bastianini, he goes from 11th place. That's a high-quality fourth row, isn't it? Aleix Espargaro, and there, Bastianini, and this man. Last year's German Grand Prix winner Fabio Quartararo, just to give him a little pre-sprint pep talk and an embrace and a hug of encouragement from his good buddy Jake Dixon. But it was another very, very poor qualifying from Quartararo. Yes, he did get into Q2 directly, but finds himself last in that Q2 session. His qualifying forms in the last 4 races: 16th, 13th, 15th and 12th for our most recent winner here in Germany.
It shows how fine the margins are in MotoGP with a minute or two of qualifying 2 remaining. Fabio Quartararo was looking at a provisional place on the second row of the grid and found himself relegated 7 or 8 places in those closing minutes, which is why he's got to play catch up. One thing that Quartararo hasn't excelled in so far this year are the sprints. 6 sprints so far for Fabio Quartararo and only 1 point scored.
First time in 7 races Marc Marquez doesn't start from the front row of the grid, as Jack Miller gets set for this 15-lap sprint. 3-minute board goes up at the front of the grid. The safety car pulls away, and we are set for some sprint action. What's sure to be a scintillating sprint here in the Liqui Moly Grand Prix of Germany. Great to see the fans finally enjoying some nice mid-June sunshine here in this part of the Saxony region. As we get set then, Pekka Bagnaia, we're looking down on that front row of the grid. Bagnaia, he took pole with a 1:21.409. So your front row then for this 15-lap Saxon Ring showdown. It is Jack Miller on the front row for the second time on the factory KTM. He's gone for the medium-soft combination. Luca Marini, a career best second in the Premier class for Marini. Italian took his first ever World Championship podium here 5 years ago in Moto2, but 4 poles in the last 5. Can it be yet another victory in the Tissot sprint for world champion Pekka Bagnaia?